Good morning and welcome to a video on how to take notes in Math 8. I'm going to use our first lesson, and that's on the left side of the screen. And then on the right side of the screen is my Math 8 notebook. I suggest having a Math 8 notebook for yourself. Now, something that's going to be important for every unit is to make sure you include your vocabulary. So here's some vocabulary for Unit 1. Got the word and then the definition. These definitions I just got out of the textbook. I didn't do anything crazy. Alright, I learned a lot about the unit just by knowing the words that we would see. And it took me 2 pages. Now when you make vocabulary lists, there's 3 columns in the vocab list on your It's Learning, and one of them says guaranteed. Always include the guaranteed words. That's a must. Then in the middle column, there's words that you probably already know, so if you know them, you don't have to write them, but if like integers is in the middle column in the vocab list on It's Learning, I wrote it down because I pretended like I didn't know it. And then the third column is cognitive words, words like describe, classify, compare, order, convert. Those are like what we'll be doing in this unit, and if you know what those words tell you to do, you don't have to write those. But make sure you're writing the words for the guaranteed vocabulary. So I'm assuming that you are virtual learning and that you do not have a printer at home. I don't have a printer at home, so I wouldn't expect you to. But what I want you to know is that you can still take the notes even if you don't have a printer. I'm going to use our first lesson. That's on the left side of the screen. I'm going to press play, and then I'm going to walk you through a lesson. It's about 10 minutes. We won't do the whole thing. And I'm going to stop at points where I think it'll be important for you to take notes. Alright, welcome to Unit 1. We're going to get real exciting with classifying real numbers. So this is Unit 1, and this is Day 1 if you need to know that. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about what it means to classify. You did this in 6th grade, but if you don't remember, we're going to use an example with animals to make this a little. Okay, pause. Make sure you've titled your notes. This is Unit 1, Classifying Real Numbers. Now, I also mentioned that it was Day 1. If you want to do that, you can write Day 1, or you could write the date. The date in which we will be learning about this is August 31st, 2020. So I'm speaking to you from the future. A little more exciting. For each of these animals, let's talk about where it would fall in this diagram. Is the elephant an animal? Yes. Does it have 4 legs? Yes. Is it featured in The Lion King? I do believe I saw some elephants in The Lion King, but does it have stripes? No, so we're going to put elephant right here. About flamingo. Flamingo is an animal. Does it have 4 legs? No, so flamingo has to stay out here. Lion, animal with 4 legs. Well, was it in The Lion King? I think so. Dolphin is an animal, doesn't have 4 legs. So I'll just put that here. Grizzly bear, animal with 4 legs. Here we go. Pet cat is an animal with 4 legs, but that cat wasn't in The Lion King. Those were big cats. And then zebra is an animal with 4 legs. Was definitely in The Lion King, and it has stripes. So what we learned from this is that Okay, I'll stop there and just show you I didn't have the warm-up, but I drew the diagram. It doesn't look exactly the same. You know, the note said grizzly bear, but I just wrote bear. That's fine. You can eliminate some words when necessary. You can be a zebra and you're all 4 of these things. Or you're a flamingo, but you're only 1. So everything on this page is an animal. Only those in this box right here have 4 legs. These 3 animals were included in the Lion King, but only the zebra has stripes. Now what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Well, when you classify real numbers, you find that the classification includes a lot of what we've talked about before. Now that may not make sense, so let's just go through the definitions. When we're classifying numbers, something can be natural or counting. Those are numbers that we can count. So on our number line, it starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it goes all the way. What do we notice about these numbers? They're all positive, there's no decimals included, and they start at 1. Whole numbers are the counting numbers, so everything that was in this number line, and 0. So 0, super important. Integers are whole numbers and their opposites. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again, all of these numbers are included, but also going left on the number line, the -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay. Rational numbers. So in this instance, I've kind of just written down what I could gain from the notes. Now, I'm in this video just talking to myself. It'll be different if we're in a class because I'll have your cooperation. But these are also things that I, as a teacher, expect you to remember from 6th grade. But remember when I said, okay, natural numbers are positive, so I wrote down positive. Maybe you write down a plus sign because you know what positive means. No decimals, writing down those numbers so that you know, or writing out those words so you know how they connect to each other. Numbers that can be written as a fraction. Now, any of these numbers could be written as a fraction. 8 could be written 8/1, so it's a rational number. Our integers, -5/1. But we'd also look at what we have in here. We have terminating decimals, like -1/5. They're decimals that end. So like -1/5 is the same thing as saying -0.2. That ends. Repeating decimals, like 4/3. Decimals that do not end or continue forever with a pattern. So 4/3 is like saying 1.3333 and so on. And what do we do when it repeats forever? We put the line. So all of that is like what you talked about in 6th grade, rational numbers. So what might be helpful for you is making sure you box or highlight your vocabulary. Now notice I've gotten to the end of my page, but the notes aren't over, so what can I do? I can turn the page. I don't have to make it all fit on one page. Okay? But what's new in 8th grade is the irrational numbers. Those are numbers that can't be written as a fraction. Decimal repeats with no pattern. If we're going to look at that, it might be helpful to look at it on a calculator. So one of the things we see there, let's look at -√27. So -√27, -5.1961. Oh, but that's not a 9, so it's not repeating. 5, 2, 4, 2. But that's not a 4, that's a 3. So notice. So if you look at where this is on the number line in your notes, -√27 is just a little less than -5. Okay? So we're looking at these on a number line, but we can also look at these in a Venn diagram. So let's put in our, before we go on to the Venn diagram, I put stars around irrational because as I was taking notes I heard this is the new part for 8th grade. So everything before was from 6th grade and we're adding in irrational numbers for 8th grade. So that's the important part, so I've made myself recognize that it is important. Okay, so when they talked about negative 27, I don't need 100 different examples. I just needed to make sure I knew that negative square root of 27 is about negative 5.2, so I put it in my number line. Okay. It's going to help you to stay organized the best way you can. Now, it says let's look at the Venn diagram next. Now you have all these numbers to choose from, and then you've got the Venn diagram. So focus on the Venn diagram. Don't worry about writing the numbers until they titles for the real number system. Everything that we include in this box will be a real number. Now, like you learned in 6th grade, you have rational numbers. And what we just talked about, if it's not rational, we would call it irrational. Irrational. Okay? Rational numbers are anything that can be written as a fraction. Okay? But integers can also be written as a fraction. Whole numbers are part of what's included in integers, right? Integers are whole numbers and their opposites, so whole numbers goes in here. And then natural or counting. So if we look at negative 3, where would I put that? Is it a counting number? Do we see 1, 2, negative 3? No, we say 1, 2, 3, so it's not counting. It's not whole because whole numbers are counting numbers plus 0 and 0. Integers, if I look, there's negative 3 on my integer number line, so I'm going to put negative 3 in here. I'm going to mark this as I finished it. Now pi, you talk about pi in 7th grade. Pi is that ratio of circumference over diameter. But what is pi? Well, you don't remember. 3.141592654. Did any of those repeat? Did it make a pattern? No. So no pattern. It's irrational. 5/3. It can be written as and follow along and put those numbers into the Venn diagram, which you will do when we actually take these notes on Monday next week. All right? So key things that are going to help you when you're taking notes. Do the work. So sometimes we're going to say, hey, solve this equation. You're going to have to do that. Write the important words. Draw diagrams when necessary. Include the warm-up. Highlight your vocab. Make sure you're following along and try to stay organized. Now, what happens if you're taking notes and you're like, Ms. Webb, I have a question? Well, if this is not something, if we're in class, of course, ask your question. Raise your hand, let me know. But if not, write down your questions to make sure you ask them or send me a message. Okay? Good luck this year.